All right, welcome everybody to this afternoon's Committee of the Whole meeting. I'll call this meeting to order. Acknowledge that the Northern Rockies Administration Center is located in the heart of the traditional territories of the Dene, Cree, and Dunezaw peoples of the Prophet River and Fort Nelson First Nations. We further recognize the rights provided by our treaty. And finally, we celebrate the contributions of the enduring presence of the Métis people in our region. Please be advised that tonight's meeting is available to the public to attend virtually and is being streamed and recorded. Are there any additions to the Committee of the Whole meeting? Staff has none, council has none. Good thing it's Committee of the Whole because we don't have quorum. Do we? Oh, that's right, we have 4. What am I thinking? There's only, I was thinking there's 3 missing, but we do have quorum, yeah. Not counting myself. Okay, count additional CAO additions. Adoption of the agenda, please. Everybody okay with the agenda the way it is? Okay, thank you. Is there any public comments? Anybody online? Anybody in the gallery? No comment. Okay. Let's move to 5.1, Committee of the Whole report, 623, the connectivity update. Turn it over to staff. Mayor. Gabby's got a speaking surgery. I looked out there and saw 3 of us and said, "There's only 3." We're just at 5.1 on the agenda, the connectivity updates. Gabby and Mike are going to give us a lowdown. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So we brought a report for you in regards to work being done at the municipality to improve connectivity services. At this time, the regional municipality has an opportunity to participate in live hearings to be held virtually with the CRTC in April 2023. And in preparation for those live hearings, we felt it timely to provide an update to Council on work that has taken place to improve connectivity services within the region. You'll note that the report before you first provides an update on work being done to improve internet service specifically, both with the CRTC at a federal level, as well as with the government of BC at the provincial level. The report further discusses efforts being taken to improve cell coverage, as well as looking at the implementation of 5 new roadside emergency call boxes as an interim measure along the highway. And lastly, the report looks at the implementation of 911 call service, as well as the future transition to next generation 911 service. So we would welcome any questions at this time.
Council, have any questions? The report was pretty straightforward. I thought it was good. I didn't get a chance to sort of get into all of the other links that you had. I will, because I think that there's probably some really good information there. But this, you generalized it enough, you know, to bring me up to speed with respect to what we're doing. And you know, I think a live presentation to the CRTC about, you know, the costs and the difficulties that we have having only one provider, I think are and the 911 stuff, I think is good and is timely for us. Councillor Andrews?
Just looking at the future call box locations, it seems we have a void up Highway 77. I refresh my memory. Did we consider call boxes up there? I don't remember, but I'm thinking maybe we should.
Is there a trunk line there though? I think we're able to do it on the highway because there's trunk lines there, are we not? There's internet trunk line?
I'd be happy to talk a little bit further to that.
Sure.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, certainly when we look to determine the first 5 locations of the roadside emergency call boxes, Highway 77 or the Liard Highway was certainly considered. That being said, it was determined that at this time there is some level of cell coverage along that transportation corridor, while that cell coverage is intermittent. That being said, or perhaps rather taking that into consideration, we then also looked at options along the Alaska Highway, both south and north or northwest of Fort Nelson. And along that transportation corridor, it was determined that there are long stretches of highway where there's simply no cell coverage, or it's rather not intermittent. It's just is not there at this time. So I think just in looking at we secured funding to procure 5 roadside emergency call boxes. We were really looking to maximize where they were being installed and to ensure we are filling in gaps in service as best we could. That being said, for the installation of the call boxes, we're not at this time looking to access, say, Northwest Tel infrastructure, but rather these will be satellite-based technology. And the calls, they will be able to route directly to our 911, public safety answering point provider, Grand Prairie Fire Rescue. And then emergency services would then be dispatched similar to how they are with the 911 call that is coming in from, say, just Fort Nelson area.
Thank you. I knew there was a reason.
Please.
Just a question about the call boxes. I understand we've been doing some tests. How are the call boxes doing in this testing phase? Are the solar panels equipped to deal with the snow? How's everything going?
Yeah, thank you for that question. That's correct. The technology, we have been testing it at the Public Works Yard for the last several weeks. It's more so our IT department that's taking the lead on testing that equipment and will be also taking the lead on commissioning the equipment. That being said, it was reported this afternoon that testing has been going well, both with the colder weather we've been experiencing, as well as with looking at how snow coverage on the solar panels will impact their performance. So what we've seen so far, it was reported that the testing is going well. I think that from last I heard, that the testing will continue for, say, next few weeks, just to gauge the performance of the battery. But seeing as the tests are going well, and they continue to go well, I foresee that we would then look to deploy the equipment along the highway shortly.
Yeah, that's good that they're satellite based. I thought they were we were tying into the trunk line that Northwest Tel had, but that's even better. It'll give us an opportunity to test satellite usage in. Sorry about that. I thought I had shut that off, but apparently not. Sorry about that. Yeah, it gives us the opportunity to sort of check that satellite technology out, which gives us the ability to put them almost anywhere, right? So good. Any other questions? Next steps then, with respect to this report, just the CRTC presentation. Is that the next step for you guys?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, preparing a presentation for the CRTC in April, again, highlighting the key findings from our regional connectivity strategy, again, highlighting some perhaps concerns around connectivity services in the region. I think continuing to engage with CRTC hearings to ensure that regional interests are represented in potential updates or changes to the federal regulatory framework for Northwest Tel. And of course, looking to install the call boxes shortly.
Good. Last question.
Quick question about Starlink. Do we know if there's much uptake in the municipality? And if there is it working for businesses, for residents? How's it going?
The information, Councillor, that we have is largely anecdotal. Starlink is not big on sharing the proprietary information, but subjectively coverage is surprisingly good. And I think the incumbent service provider has been taken somewhat aback by the uptake, even in areas where they have hardwired alternatives. And not just in BC, but in Yukon as well.
Just to follow up, it says that they offer a service that's more affordable or less expensive than the comparable service offered by our incumbent. I looked into the rates on Starlink, and it was, I think, over $600 a month for unlimited for a business plan. Is that comparable to the incumbent? Is that I was quite shocked at that price tag.
As far as business plans go, I don't know how close that comes in terms of it's apples and oranges because of their single packaging. So a business might be able to get a cheaper plan, but it might not be at as high a capacity. So in terms of direct comparison, I can't answer that question directly. What I do know is that for outlying businesses that are looking at it seriously, there would be a considerable, and underlined considerable, saving up highway, for example, in Muncho. And accompanying that would be a very significant increase in bandwidth and access. The other part of your question was how they're performing. We have 3 members of staff that compare notes periodically, and all reports are positive. Very, very few hiccups in terms of delivery, bandwidth, almost universally exceeding that available with the maximum plan of Northwest Tel, and residential rates approximately $30 a month cheaper once you front end the cost of the equipment. And that's a consideration, and that's a consideration that was specifically in our presentation to CRTC and to the government. The provincial government will be raised. As far as Starlink being viewed as a solution to access for those that don't have it, because it violates one of the precepts that we're pursuing under the regional strategy, and that is that of affordability. So while it may be comparably affordable in operating cost, the capital cost up front rules out a good portion of the population that don't have $1,000 to lay on the table.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much for your presentation today. We'll move on to the the whole report 723 OCP and zoning bylaw amendment for discussion.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Me?
We have received an application for the zoning amendment for the property located at 317 Alaska Highway, which is just about 30 kilometers north from the Fort Nelson. And the application is contemplating both zoning bylaw amendment as well as OCP amendment. And to the discussion today, staff is basically seeking direction from the council with regard to this application. So speaking about the parcel is currently zoned as A2 agriculture small holding and is designated as large holding agriculture in OCP. The area of the subject property is approximately 51 hectare, and the rezoning is proposed only for the portion of the property, which would be 24 hectare approximately. And the request is to rezone the proposed area to C3 service commercial and designate highway commercial. Yeah, and also the request is about spot zoning for the cardlock fuel cells. So there are altogether 3 of them. As there are several aspects involved with this zoning amendment application, each of those that has been identified and are related with the OCP policies as well as zoning regulations are outlined in the report. And assuming that council has already read the report, I will briefly touch the components of the report. So historically, the subject property was designated as a tourist commercial use, which was oriented to provide the services to the traveling public. And in 2008, the zoning of the property, along with other properties in the vicinity of the highway intersection, was changed into A2 agriculture small holding. The agriculture capability of the subject property is described as class 5, which is also the reason why the rezoning was done in 2008. And as per the attachment provided, there are some limitations of topography, excess water, and undesirable soil structure into the parcel. Yeah, that's pretty much the high-level aspect about the report. And if you have any question, I would be happy to answer it.
Questions for Ms. Anacari? Councillor Souls?
I always smell a rat whenever someone references a class 5 soil in Port Nelson or something as a reason not to keep it in agricultural land, simply because most of what I farm started out as agricultural class 5 land, and it's very, very productive land. And it's simply by working it. So it will not become good by sitting there. I get it. I understand that. But when I say I smell a rat, because there's the overarching thinking of the Agricultural Land Commission and its work is to actually just ensure that there is agricultural land that's in their net for future use in case it's needed. And I recognize that this subject property is right at a highway junction, and had we had a more active industry base overall, I think this would have been developed into something like this or a long time ago. So I can see why there's a desire at the highway junction to do something like this. I just wanted to put in a plug that I'm always really reluctant to see agriculture land convert back into something else when we have such a small agricultural footprint as it is.
Anybody else? I tend to agree with the comments that it's an inevitable, I mean, it's an inevitable opportunity, I guess, that this will turn into some type of a commercial property at the junction of 2 highways like that. It's just, you see it everywhere. You see junctions like this, you see this type of development springing up. I'm less concerned about the agricultural in this particular area because it's not developed, and I agree with you. You can work land and make it into a better quality land than it is. My concern about this is a split zoning on the same property, and what are the options to subdivide the property up and zone 2 pieces of property? And the only reason I'm concerned, one of the reasons I'm concerned, is that when you take a piece of property and put a double zoning on it, and you kind of speak to this in the report, is that pretty soon it gets mishmashed, right? So that that pipe that's normally over there in the pipe yard area, a couple of years from now ends up over here in the other area. That it'd be just because someone said, "Oh, we need some room. We got some over there." That's it. Just because there's no physical barriers. So, is that an option to request that? I guess so. Just physically split the property, and then if we do put it to commercial zoning, you say that it brings a development permit area into play, and then there potentially is an opportunity for us to ask them to put a fence up. So I'm just, what are those opportunities for us to, or have you had any discussions with them with respect to split zoning, or is that something you'd have to do?
Right now, the topography of the site is mix of a bit of flat area, a bit of high and low levels, as well as there is a natural creek that kind of divides the property almost diagonally from southwest to almost to the northeast area. But it kind of fades out towards the northern side. So if you see the proposed area, that's kind of separated by the creek line, and the applicant have mentioned that they would be having the setback of 15 meters from that creek area. So that's something natural boundary that can be considered that may not be misutilized later. And also, as we have informed them about, the municipality may request or can request the survey plan, so that we will have something legal in place, so that later if they are not obeying with the boundary line, then we can enforce it somehow. So yeah,
But it's just a line on a piece of paper somewhere, right? Is what it ends up being.
yeah.
Well, it's just, I mean, it's a survey line that somebody puts onto a plan that ends up in a file or on a computer somewhere. 5 years from now, nobody knows what it's there. But if there's a physical barrier, that actually separates the zones that we're contemplating, I think it goes some way. And if they're interested in developing this property, then they're prepared to put some money in there. It wasn't so much the property on the other side of the creek, it was more the north-south division. So the separating the C3 from the, what would it be, M2 in order to,
Agriculture A2.
no. So separating the split zone. So basically they want two zones on the same piece of property, right? One is for the yard, one is for the commercial card lock, dispensing of the commercial card lock. And that's
Spot zoning, that would be spot zoning.
yeah, but what zone would it need to be? M2?
It does not have to be any zone. So spot zoning basically allows to have any use in any zone under consideration.
So which zone allows us to put in commercial card lock?
C7, M1, M2, and AP.
Right, so it could be M1 or M2.
So what would occur is it would be a C3, and then there would be an exemption or an exception in the bylaw to allow card lock fuel sales on that PID, on that parcel.
On that
with-
C3 property.
Correct. So you're not doubling up the zoning designation. It's a C3 zone with the allowance for card lock fuel sales. And that kind of resolves, because if you were to increase it to an M1 zone, then that opens up a whole lot of other potential uses that may not be compatible.
Right.
So if council was prepared to allow card lock fuel sales, the recommendation would be that it be C3 with the addition of card lock fuel for that parcel.
For that parcel only.
Yes,
Then you're not setting a precedent that you could do that anywhere in a C3 zone,
correct.
right? So, and then once it becomes C3, that's when the development permit comes in and we can ask for a fence to separate the areas. Yes?
Yes.
You've got some flexibility there.
Yeah. Okay, well, that covers off my concerns with it.
I'm one of the questions I have is why would this actually be needed for this purpose? And I ask that with the background of when you know the direction of most of our industrial oil and gas work, there's almost zero to the west of this on the Alaska Highway. There's not, it's not as though this is only, I think, a pipe yard and a card lock to service Highway 77 and what goes on up there rather than the other way. And so we actually have quite a bit of vacant land right in town that has room for pipe yards and so on as well. And the card locks are traditionally on the south side of town in what we call Gasoline Alley. So this is actually another card lock that is added, maybe because it's closer to the oil patch or what it is, but it's sort of first in line for trucking or whatever coming out of the bush. Whereas on the way in, they come in past all the rest of what we already have. So know for sure that this is a competitive idea to compete with local card locks that previously exist already. One of which is sitting doing nothing. No, sorry, two of which are sitting doing nothing. So I'm just curious about that. That's one point. One more question or one more observation of how the layout is done on it. You mentioned the southwest to northeast creek that divides the property, but the zone that they would like to have rezoned covers the complete every square inch of the frontage along the Alaska Highway. So there would be no access to the other half of the area anyway. And so I think it doesn't have a utilization. It just means that what's in front is what's behind it. There's no access to it otherwise.
Yeah, so they have to go through the card lock in order to be able to get up to the pipe yard, unless they were able to come off 77 somewhere. And that would be a requirement for the highways anyways, wouldn't it? For them to look at this before we could actually move forward with the rezoning? Would highways have to speak to this question, anybody?
Well, highways would have to look at it for sure. I'm not sure if they'd have to before the rezoning would need to be done. They do before the rezoning required? Okay,
Yeah.
so there's your answer. But they definitely, I know they definitely have a look at it.
Yeah,
For sure.
actually, I read that. I think that's in the report, is it? Yeah, I read that. Yeah, I don't know that it's council's job to pick winners and losers in business as to who can go where. And, you know, it's, I guess we get the opportunity at a rezoning to say no to it. But to me, I try not to bring the competition of it into the idea. So to me does the property suit the need and does it detract from the original official community plan or the existing official community plan, even though this one is older, is it detracting from that? And the report says that the OCP contemplates this C3 commercial in that zone, recognizing that just about every intersection, you know, in British Columbia has got some kind of a large highway intersection, got some kind of development on it. So the OCP was forward looking that place. Is now the time? That's really not for us to say. I personally don't believe it's for us to say. So I'm in favor of moving forward with this, with the proponent myself. Any other comments? Santa Caria?
Just wanted to add a note, because the intent of the highway commercial designation is to provide services to the traveling public, and that's what the direction is in the OCP. But C3 commercial, that is service commercial, is not totally in line, aligned with that intent, because C3 service commercial deals with the uses such as repair, maintenance, distribution, and retailing components, and having a very limited outdoor storage. So yeah, I just wanted to provide you the note.
Yeah. There's really not a lot of difference though between those two, really, when you actually see what's going on the property. I mean, in my view, it's pretty fine line between highway commercial and service commercial. I'm okay with service commercial in this area. If we need to do a zoning amendment anyways, right? And an amendment to the OCP in order to make this happen or allow it to happen, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And those both require a public hearing?
Yes.
Yeah, so the public will get an opportunity to speak to this if they like. Good. All right, so I guess we're just asking, we're just, those are our thoughts, because there's no recommendation. Obviously, we're not making a decision at this meeting. So next steps for staff is to take this and work with the proponent to actually come back with the zoning amendment itself. Okay. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That moves us then to the last order of business. And that is the Tourism Action Committee recommendation about the Rainbow Lake Road discussions. I think that's coming forward on the regular agenda. I guess this is open for discussion. I guess we can kind of handle it all at the same time. But so as you recall, back in November, we got the original letter from request to meet with the Mackenzie Regional Alliance, which is Rainbow Lake and High Level, and so Rainbow Lake and High Level would like to meet with us to discuss the potential for a permanent road between Rainbow Lake and here. And this is not the first time that this has been brought up. Certainly, I mean, I can remember way back to being a high school kid and hearing about this kind of thing, and I have my personal thoughts about it, but in my view, it's never a negative thing to talk to your neighbors and understand at least what they're looking at and what they're interested in. And my understanding is that this is they didn't want to just meet elected official to elected official. At least it doesn't say that in their letter anywhere. So to me, that means it's an open meeting and anybody can attend it. And that includes that includes TAC and Chamber of Commerce, and from the perspective of understanding what they want and what we, what they see the benefits of this are. The more people we have hearing that, the better feedback we'll get when we start talking about a project or not a project. Those are my thoughts on that anyway. Anybody else?
I felt much the same. If there's an organization within our community who's also interested in hearing this information firsthand, I don't see why we shouldn't invite them to the table, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if the proponent it's not a proponent, if the community is interested in just having, a elected official to elected official for whatever reason, I don't have a problem doing that either. But in this particular case, they didn't give us any indication that was the case. And so I think we can open it up to anybody who wants to come to it. Any other comments? Councillor Souls?
I do think that it should be open for anyone who has comments. There was quite historically quite a broad range of ideas that were linked to it, not the least of which there's a very large agricultural area in east of Rainbow Lake in the Lacrete and Fort Vermilion area and so on. And we actually sit at, and part of the discussion of history is that we sit at the head of what used to be BC Rail. And that was actually a way more effective, had there been a road, it's a way more effective means to move grain this way onto this line versus the line that they move it south in Alberta and have to go the other way. So
Because it would have to go all the way to Edmonton and then
all the way to
and
Edmonton
then revert
and
to the west.
reverse.
Here we go to Prince George.
Where here we go directly through to Prince George. It would have been a more direct route to the grain facilities in Prince Rupert. And so there's just a different thing. Of course, we saw
They'd have to truck it a little further, but
yes,
in the end, the rail would be cheaper.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
and more direct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting. There's pros and cons to everything, eh? All right, any more discussion? All right. Seeing none, we will adjourn the committee of the whole meeting. And we'll start up again at 6:30. Thank you very much, everybody.